Now, if we talk about the Pashto language and the literature in Pashto language, there is a lot to kind of uncover. And I've actually talked about how the Pashto language was kind of taught under the British Raj or not in one of my previous videos. I'll link it at the end of the video and in the description box so you can have a look. But even though Pashto was almost never taught on a wide scale historically, but we do find examples where different Muslim rulers or different rulers actually value the language a lot. Now, the ruler Sher Khan actually spoke the language and he had a lot of affection for it. Hi, my name is Misha and welcome to Tarihi Tales. So the ruler Sher Khan, who ruled around the 1500s, actually spoke the language, Pashto, and he also really loved the language. Now, Abbas Khan Sherwani, who was the author of the book Tarikh-e-Sher Khani, he writes that when his grandfather actually went to see Sher Khan said this in the Afghan language. I'm not going to attempt to say that because I know I'm going to butcher it, but in English that means, "Oh Sheikh, embrace me." There are also other sources which tell us that Sher Khan actually used to question new recruits into the army in Pashto. And whoever replied in Pashto, he was asked to kind of draw a bow, and if he did it rightly, then he was actually given a much higher salary than the rest of the new recruits. And he's also quoted to have said, "The Afghan tongue is dear to me." Now, even though it wasn't an official language, but because of some of the reasons I mentioned in my other video, and because of general development as well, we see that books about the Pashto language and books written in the Pashto language start to emerge in the 16th century. Now, I've gathered this information from a peer-reviewed academic paper, which I'll link in the description box. You can go have a look at it yourself. Now, that author had access to a number of manuscripts that were in Pashto, but these manuscripts were kind of scattered in different places like the British Library, the Pashto Academy, and other libraries in Pakistan. The author was unable to see some of the manuscripts which are found in various museums and libraries in India. Okay, so when the British actually left, they took so many things from here. So just to give you an example, there are 170 manuscripts in Pashto which are scattered all across the British Isles. 69 are in the British Museum, 60 are in the Oriental and India Office collection of the library, and there are some others as well, obviously. But the collections in Britain are actually so much larger than the ones that we have here in Pakistan as well, because they just took a lot of the things, The debate about the British Museum and the ethics behind it is another one. Maybe we should make a video on that as well. If you guys are interested, let me know. So when we look at literature, the Pashto literature in that time, some of the books that kind of come to the limelight are as follows. We have Khairul Bayan by Bayezid Ansari, which was written in the 1500s. Bayezid Ansari is also known as Pir Roshan by his followers. Now, the Pir's book is actually written in the Nastaliq script, and it has been called a textbook of sorts because it does have some excerpts teaching people about the teachings of Islam. So some people speculate that this was probably taught, it looks like a textbook which was probably taught in like madrasas. But the thing is that a lot of other people kind of object to his ideas and call them heretical even, and there's a lot of controversy around his book. Okay, now another book which was very popular is the Musan or Treasure. Now this book is a collection of a lot of famous Arabic religious texts in the Pashto language, because we also start to see translations coming into play during these time periods. Now, this book's manuscript, which was written in 1592, is actually present in the Pashto Academy in the University of Peshawar, Pakistan. Now, this author writes the entire book in Pashto. Of course, he translates things, but the preface that he writes that in Persian, because during that time, Persian was the more influential and the more widely spoken language. Now, this guy also kind of talks about the book we talked about earlier, written by Pir Roshan. Now, he says that he's trying to explain the beliefs of Islam to the Afghan people because people like Pir Roshan are misguiding them and not telling them the truth. As I mentioned, his book is quite controversial. So this guy wrote a book in 1592 to kind of counter his book. This book is said to be very popular. It is said to be taught in both madrasas and at home. It was also read out loud in gatherings for people who were unable to read, because unlike the modern day, not everybody could read and write during those times, and also not everybody had access to books. Now, another famous book from that time period is Rashidul Bayan, which was written by Mullah Abdul Rashid. Now, this book was also part of the curriculum and was specifically taught to women as well. This was written in 1712, and for some reason, this book was kind of more focused on women, and that's who it was taught to more. It was read aloud in gatherings as well. Then we also have, during the same time period, another book called Fawaidul Shariat by Akhund Muhammad Qasim, which is also written in the 1700s, near 1712. Now, this book is quite interestingly written because it's written in Pashto, but he gives subtitles in red ink in Persian right below the Pashto text. This book is again about Islamic fundamentals, and it talks about religious law, it talks about prayers and so on. This guy also kind of uses verses and all in Arabic as well in his writing, which kind of indicates that he knew all three languages, Pashto, Persian and Arabic. Now, among other books that came in this time which were also religious texts, we find books like Kitab Baba Jan, which was again a religious textbook written in the 1700s. We find Jannatul Firdaus, a book written by Hafiz Abdul Kabir. A copy of this book lies in the British Museum and it's dated 1809, and he again talks about religious virtues. Other religious books during that time period include books like Nafiul Muslimin, Rabatul Islam, and the Majmuatul Khitab. Now, these weren't all the religious books that existed during that time. There were a lot more, but these were some of the very famous ones. And it wasn't just the case that they were only religious books. We just happened to talk about the religious books today because these were the most popular literature. But as I mentioned in my other videos, that there were books which were kind of made specifically to teach Pashto. There were also books which were kind of stories and poems and poetry in Pashto which were emerging during these time periods. Actually, we see a lot of study guides coming out of this time period. And these study guides were not for the Pashtun people. These were actually for the Britishers. So we see a lot of study guides in English as well, which is quite interesting. And if you want to see more about that, then you can go ahead and watch this video. I just found it interesting how so much of the early literature in the Pashto language was kind of based around religion, and these books were actually quite popular. So I thought let's make a short video about these as well, because unlike that author, how many of us are gonna go to the British Museum and have a look at all of these different manuscripts, right? So let me know what you think of this video, and make sure to watch the video with the British Raj and how Pashto was actually not taught to the locals but only learnt by the British. Hypocrisy 101. And let me know what you think, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.